good morning, good afternoon, good night, whatever time of day you're watching this, or time of night. I don't know the lingo, but I have 6 topics. Yes, 6 topics. Once again, I was gonna have 7, but I was like, nah, let me keep it at 6. That's me for another day where I go big. But 6 topics today. I'm keeping it consistent. 6 topics rather than the 4 topics I was doing last year. New year, new decade, new podcast. So 6 topics for today. Yeah, 6. Making sure I got that right. And it started off with an amazing weekend. We had Conor McGregor winning, which I'll get to. We had the conference championships. Those were pretty entertaining, except for the Green Bay and San Francisco one. That was entertaining to start off with, but then it was like, yeah, it was kind of over. But I'm gonna talk about those also. And then we had some new hires. In the NFL. One of them I'm gonna get to, just because I'm not sure how I feel so much about it, and I want to wait for the rest of free agency mainly to kind of wrap up or get started actually, because it hasn't even started, or maybe the NFL draft actually. But then I have another basketball team I want to talk about. It seemed like that was pretty cool. Last time I talked about the Milwaukee Bucks and the Oklahoma City Thunder and Giannis and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Now I'm going to be talking about the Hawks. That's for later on. And also the NBA All-Star voting, which finalized tonight. Or actually, Martin Luther King Day got finalized. And now it's being broadcasted tonight as I'm recording. But when this goes up, probably, I think it's the night before. So that should be awesome and I'm looking forward to it. And I have a topic about it, just briefly talking about it. But let's jump right into my first topic, which is Redemption Weekend, which is just wrapping up everything that happened this weekend that I found amazing. So let's start off. It was Redemption Weekend in the NFL and Conor McGregor at UFC 246. But let's first start in the NFL. Andy Reid finally got past what was haunting him in the conference championships and now into the Super Bowl. I, however, am of the belief that this was the year, no matter what. As soon as they got into the playoffs, I was like, even if the Patriots win, the Chiefs got this, just by the way that they were looking going into it, that they were a lot more confident. They just looked better, and I didn't really believe too much in the Ravens. Even if they beat the Titans, I didn't think that they were going to beat the Chiefs. But, you can call me out and say, oh, the Titans at 2020, but I know that it's true and that I, had the Chiefs going all the way. So I find that amazing. I find it amazing that he overcame that, and you might have saw the video of him in the locker room and him coming around and just celebrating. It was really cool. He was really happy to finally get over that hurdle and get into the Super Bowl after just being in the conference championship modem for so long, or purgatory, I guess, for so long. And on the NFC side, so on the AFC we have Andy Reid getting to the Super Bowl. On the NFC side, we have Kyle Shanahan. I almost butchered his name. Kyle Shanahan, where he learned from his Super Bowl 51 mistake of just not running off the clock and just not playing his style of game for the Falcons, and obviously he didn't blow the lead for the Niners. So it was a 27-0 lead, which is a bit harder to blow than a 25-zip lead. But again, it was amazing to see him learn from his mistakes and to see the storyline continue. Now for UFC 246, this was the real redemption of the weekend, the big one. Conor McGregor against Donald Cerrone in UFC 246, and I had Conor McGregor winning this mainly because I was just rooting for him. I wanted him to win, and I thought that I find him personally just really, really funny the way that he acts. I find him really interesting, and I was rooting for him. I had him winning, but I never would have seen this coming, a 40-second knockout. I don't think it would be ridiculous to see that coming, but it was just cool. I'm not an expert on the UFC. I'm not an expert in MMA. I do Taekwondo, but that's nowhere close to the physicality and the punishment on the body as the MMA and the UFC. But that's why I'm focusing on a storyline. Just because I don't know UFC does not mean that I can't focus on what this guy has been through. So, I mean, this guy, Conor McGregor, has been out of professional fighting in the UFC for pretty much a year. I've done Taekwondo. If I was out for a year, I don't know if I could do a lot of the things that I was once able to do. So I found it amazing that he was able to, hang in there, or even have the confidence to go back into the ring and say, you know what, I can do this. But then on top of that, I'm not sure if it was before or afterwards. I think it was before. He admitted to having been drinking before the Khabib fight, where he lost, obviously, and from then on, well, not from then on, but from October leading up to this fight, he had been sober in preparation for it and did not give himself any leeway. And he also admitted to before some of his previous fights, where he do a little boxing match or fighting with whoever, and then he just disappear a couple to 3 nights before the actual fight and just do nothing, not take care of himself. And to see that he's reflected on that, and it produced what we saw for 40 seconds of domination. It's unbelievable. And even when he won, usually you see him running out of the cage, jumping over the fence, and celebrating, going crazy, riling up his fans. But I found it even more amazing, not necessarily the physicality and how great he was in that fight, but how he acted after he won, where it was so humble. He acted with a lot of humility. He was kneeling. He was shocked. He was I won. I did it. I came all this way. I did all this hard work, and it paid off. I was out for a year, and now I'm back. And he's ready to go. And after that fight, he checked on Donald Cerrone, and he was making sure he's okay, and even gave him a little kiss on the head. But he kneeled beside him and embraced him, hugged him, as it was not so much a thank you or an arrogant way, but as in just a moment of just togetherness, I guess, where only Conor McGregor can really describe it, I guess. But I don't think it was arrogant. I think it was just humble, where he was just grounded and was oh my goodness, this feels really, really good. I think that's what was going on in his head, and he was just, I just found it amazing that he was, on the verge of tears practically, and he hugged Donald Cerrone, and it was just an act of humility, I'm pretty sure. That's why I view it. And so, to me, Conor McGregor is the guy that has reflected on himself, on his past, on his fighting, and changed his bad habits for the better. And it seems that he's, for now, in a good place. And to me, that's inspirational. Now, so that was Redemption Weekend. Now I'm going to go on to talking about football a bit, the championships, conference championships. And I'm going to start off with the one that was a blowout. Well, actually both were. But the one that was more pure domination from start to finish. And that is San Francisco against Green Bay. The Niners against the Packers. Aaron Rodgers being drafted by the Packers and be the Niners made a mistake and passed up on me. I'm going to make them regret it. I'm going to get my revenge. And it was a huge storyline. And then we get this. So, how do I start? Well, this segment is going to be as quick as that game. It's going to be just a masterpiece and then boom, done. So, the Niners beat the Packers by 17 points, 37-20. And in my video, in my segment, I think last week, going into this game, I said the Packers need to establish the run immediately, early. That way they can open up the passing game, and then ultimately they cannot commit turnovers because San Francisco will cash in on those. Green Bay did the same thing. I think it was week 12 against the Niners, where they just committed fumbles, and I'm not sure if there's an interception, but just fumbles. And it got the Niners going offensively, and they really fed off that rather than, going downfield and scoring by themselves. And so those are the two things I asked for the offense of the Packers. Establish the run early and don't commit turnovers. The defense, I was like, just hope for the best at that point. And at the start, they kind of did that first one, establishing the run. They kind of did that. And maybe if they complete some of those promising drives, I think the second drive. No, the first drive. The first drive went all the way up to, I believe, the 50-yard line. And then they got to 4th and 1, and they had to punt it. If that drive gets a first down instead of having to punt it, who knows how this game plays out because they get the points first. So maybe if they, finish off a couple of possessions, finish off a couple of promising drives so they get deep, such as the one I'm going to get to later on where they got all the way to the 25-yard line of the Niners, maybe they don't get slapped like they did. They don't get slapped by 17 points. But as soon as Aaron Jones started going off, he had 49 yards on 9 carries in that first half. And he only had 12 carries, 12 for the whole game, so only 3 carries at the end. But a lot of that had to do with, we're down 27 zip. So yeah, we kind of got to start passing a lot more. But as soon as he started going off on that drive where they got all the way to the 25-yard line, like I was saying, of the Niners, he had an 11-yard carry, 7 yards, 4 yards, 5 yards, all in a row. That's a good amount against that Niners front 7. That's pretty good. And they're deep in the 49ers territory on the 25-yard line, and then the center missnaps the ball. It doesn't even make it to Aaron Rodgers' hands. The center completely messed it up, where he tried to bring it up, but it ended up hitting himself in the butt, and it was a fumble, and it was the game switched like that. I think at that point it was 17 zip. If they score a touchdown, 17-7, there's a bit of light. A bit of momentum starts going their way, but they fumble it, and it was never the same after that. It just sucked the life out of them at that point. And as soon as that happened, you were like, it's over. That's as far as they're getting. Although they score, 20 points afterwards, at that point you're like, no, it's over. It's over. And then on the next possession, when Aaron Rodgers threw an interception, and then the Niners scored a touchdown right afterwards, before halftime, 27 zip, you're done. 27 zip. For all that Aaron Rodgers is known for coming back, it was not going to happen against this Niners offense or defense. And your own defense can't even stop the 49ers run, as Jimmy Garoppolo only threw the ball 8 times and had 6 completions, right? So that was pretty much the whole game. It just became the Packers just weren't able to finish off drives or even start getting drives started initially. And it was just devolved into just a beatdown. But now I'm going to go on to a bit more interesting, exciting game, which is the Kansas City Chiefs against the Tennessee Titans. And this was a good one. This was a good one all the way up till, I would say, midway in the fourth quarter, where no team scored in the third quarter. And then it was on the edge of your seats, and you're like, ooh, what can happen here? So let's start off. Kansas City beat the Tennessee Titans 35-24. And this was a good game until Kansas City went up by 11 points, 28-17, about halfway into the fourth quarter. And after that, you just knew it was over because Kansas City just had momentum going their way. And the way that Tennessee plays, you cannot come back from down 11 with a pure run game. You have to pass the ball. And I'm not sure if any of us really trust Tannehill to really bring a team like that back into it against such an explosive offense and a Kansas City defense that had been doing pretty well throughout that whole day. But this was a pretty good game with Tennessee going up by 10 points right off the bat. And they had a little help from Kansas City, Kansas City's defense, jumping off sides or encroaching for I think it was 2 plays straight where it was just bad. They just jumped the snap at the wrong time. And it helped set up the Titans for and I think on that drive a touchdown, which obviously hurt. But after watching the first drive for the Chiefs, I was a bit afraid that Andy Reid was gonna once again mess it up in the conference championship, because those plays on their first drive were just bad. I don't know what they were doing. They were doing some sort of RPO rollout. I don't know, just straight up hike it and run. I don't know what they were doing, but Andy Reid, took a step back, chilled out a bit from the first drive, and they started getting their thing going. And, I mean, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes got them back in the football game. And it got to 17-14, and then this is where it started shifting a bit. And this is the point where I come in and say, Steve Spagnuolo. I was talking about this guy last week when I was previewing this game. I thought that he was going to be the difference maker, and boy was he. He limited, his defense, but coached by him, obviously, limited Derrick Henry to 69 yards. Nice, but I'm 18, chill. They limited Derrick Henry to 69 yards, and, I mean, anytime you do that against a running back that good and who has been that dominant for that long, I mean, that's an automatic W. Win or lose, limiting him to 69 yards was amazing. But how did he do that? And I'm going to throw out a word there. I can go through all the schemes and all that stuff, but that would involve me going through a lot of film and breaking it apart. But the main thing that I believe really got or allowed Spagnuolo to go into the defense that they went to was trust. He stacked the box with his linebackers and defensive line against Derrick Henry to, immediately hit him in the mouth. As soon as he got that ball, hit him in the mouth. But that left a lot of field open for his defensive backs and one safety who was way, way back to cover and make sure that nothing big happened. And things big happened in that first quarter where, they had the touchdown and the field goal, where they had some big plays down the middle from Ryan Tannehill to his tight end, as well as I think A.J. Brown. Yeah. And, I mean, I'm going to say it again. Trust. Trust was the biggest thing. He trusted that his defensive backs and his safety, his one safety back there, were eventually going to be able to handle that play action or rollout or anything deep that would end up being, probably one-on-one or one-on-two. A lot of it was just trust. Because you cannot say in that defense where you're just relying on the skill of your defensive backs and the ability of them to cover these players on weird routes down the middle where everything's open. Basically just them. It's tough, especially if they can get faked out and, it's over. But again, trust. That's the main reason why he was able to stick with the defense that he did. And eventually, it started working. After Tennessee got to 17 points, it started clicking. They stopped Tennessee, and Tennessee only scored their final touchdown at the very, very end of the game when it was practically over. And in addition to that, it came down to stopping Derrick Henry on first down to really put pressure on Ryan Tannehill to throw the ball, which he didn't really do much of until they were down. Which brings me up to my next point, and I found it amazing for the Chiefs is that their offense helped the defense by forcing more passing plays, by getting that lead. Remember, running teams, they're more built to protect the lead than overcoming a deficit. So the Chiefs' offense definitely helped defense by forcing more pass plays from that Tennessee Titans offense, especially when they started falling farther back, such as when it became an 11-point game midway through the fourth quarter, and the Titans needed points like that. They needed it fast. and it just became the offense, forced those passing plays from Tennessee, which played into the Chiefs' hand as being one of the best passing defenses in the whole league, which led to another stop and another opportunity for Patrick Mahomes and company to put up more points, and the cycle continues on. And I just found it amazing. It was a great job by Kansas City, but Tennessee has a lot to be hopeful for. They have Mike Vrabel, who has proven himself so far to be a very, very capable coach, and this was by far one of the best 9-7 years. And hopefully they can find a quarterback. Although Ryan Tannehill did do a great job, but the blueprint for stopping the Titans is there. Hopefully they find a more dynamic quarterback who's not Marcus Mariota or Ryan Tannehill to slide into that offense and really make them multi-dimensional. But I just want to say I'm really happy that the Chiefs finally got to the Super Bowl with Andy Reid there, and I believe that while Mahomes and the offense led by Andy Reid were tremendous throughout this playoffs and still are tremendous and should be tremendous going into the Super Bowl, a good amount of credit has to go to Steve Spagnuolo. And here's Tyrann Mathieu talking about Steve Spagnuolo with him right next to him.
This guy's special. God brought us together. I'm sure glad he did, right?
Hey, man,
I'm sure glad he did.
He challenged me, each and every week. Even when I come off a big game, he's always trying to get me better. And that's what I respect the most about him. He's a man of God. He's a man of great faith. And, he believes in me. And I think anytime you can have a coach believe in you, I think it automatically heightens your play, makes you want to go out there, be confident, and bring the rest of the guys with you.
Easy believing a guy like this, I can tell you that right now.
That's a guy who has trust in his players. Like I said, keyword, trust. That's a guy Steve Spagnuolo has trust in his players, and his players also have trust in him. And hopefully, he helps the Chiefs win the Super Bowl. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the one hire in the NFL or I guess it's a triplet of hires that I found stunning, but also I was like, initially I was just thinking about it and I was like, I don't know how it's going to pan out, how it's going to work out. And that is the Panthers hires. They hired new head coaches, a new head coach, a new offensive coach, and a new defensive coach. So let's jump right into it. The Carolina Panthers hired Matt Rule, Joe Brady, and now Phil Snow as head coach, offensive coach, and head coach, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, respectively. So Matt Rule, head coach, Joe Brady, offensive coordinator, voice crack, Phil Snow as defensive coordinator. Now, just a little background, Matt Rule and Phil Snow both were at Baylor and helped turn it into a competitive program where they were somewhat in the hunt for the playoffs. I never really thought that they were going to make it, but they were in the hunt and were very, very competitive and, almost beat Oklahoma, but choked the big lead. And Joe Brady, he helped LSU and Joe Burrow win the NCAA college football championship. But there's only so much I can say about whether these coaches are going to turn out to be fantastic or are actually good going into the Panthers organization. But I can say the effect it'll have on the organization, players, and the future of the Panthers, like what it means. First of all, I want to say all these guys are coming out of college, but they have at least 1 year of NFL experience. Joe Brady, for example, he was there for the Saints for I think 2 years. Yeah, 2 years, I think. But all these guys have at least 1 year of college experience. However, those resulted in quick exits that brought them back to the collegiate level. And if I'm an NFL player who's been in the league for quite some time, especially if I'm a veteran, and I'm on that Carolina Panthers roster, I'm probably like, dude, come on, what have you done? Yeah, you probably brought Baylor, to recognition on the national spectrum. And yeah, Joe Brady, you did a good job with LSU, but I think I know a bit more than you. And I think that leads to a lack of respect, or not so much respect, but more of a lack of inspiration, a lack of them being able to call out the best in those players. So I think instead of lack of respect, I think it's more of lack of inspiration. I think that's the biggest thing, lack of inspiration. And I think that either this year or next year, a lot of players will start making their way out of Carolina, especially veteran players. A lot of them are going to start making their way out of Carolina, leaving space for a lot younger players. And I think that's the direction that this organization is going into with those hires, which is just starting over with Christian McCaffrey, which I hope works out, and that new coaching regime. And the reason why I say I hope it works out, I'm going to get into that a bit later. But that brings me to Cam Newton. I believe that even when Kyle Allen was going crazy, that the plan under Ron Rivera was to stick with Cam Newton because that's your superstar guy. I said, I don't care if Kyle Allen, freaking wins the whole rest of the season out. If he wins, 6, 7, 8 games in a row. I don't care if he's throwing 50 touchdowns for the whole season. I don't care. If he wins me the Super Bowl, awesome. Maybe I'll start considering. But I don't care what he does because Cam Newton is my guy. And I thought that was the idea under Ron Rivera, that no matter what Kyle Allen does, Cam Newton is my guy. But that was shaken up when Ron Rivera was fired and Matt Rule stepped in as the new head coach. And now it's starting to change even more for me with these other two hires, bringing in a new young coaching regime. Now, with those new hires, especially with Matt Rule stepping in, I'm leaning more to the idea that they're going to move on from Cam Newton and draft a quarterback and play Kyle Allen and just let that young quarterback develop behind Kyle Allen. That's more of what I'm thinking is going to go on. And that just has to do with a new regime, not with Cam Newton being a bad player at all. I still think he's really, really good. But I think that's just where the Panthers organization is just going. And I don't love it because I really wanted them to hang on to Cam Newton, which I think would have been done with Ron Rivera. And I think that in doing so, in trying to bring in a new regime and start out fresh, the hope is, yeah, you're going to build around Christian McCaffrey. But at the same time, I think that they're going to end up wasting his best years, which are right now. I think that's what's going to end up happening. And if they really do cut Cam Newton, what I said about players leaving, oh yeah, they're definitely going to start leaving. And it can be veterans. It could be literally anyone that starts leaving. Because I'm pretty sure players in the locker room have a severe respect and loyalty towards Cam Newton that if the Panthers wrong them, they're out of there. Because it's showing a lack of respect towards Cam Newton. And that's what I'm thinking when I see this, and I really hope it works out. But I think that these hires, Matt Rule, Joe Brady, and Phil Snow, are great individual ones. Great individually, where you're like, you know what, on another team, maybe that defense sucks, bring in Phil Snow, and that's about it. Or if that offense is, not doing so hot, bring in Joe Brady as an offense coordinator. Or even Matt Rule as an offense coordinator, or I don't remember which one he specializes in. But bringing them in individually, I think would have been fine for me. But collectively, as a young group, together new to this whole thing, although they do have 1 year of experience under their belt, but new to being at the very, very top, I just do not see it working out really, really well, especially with Christian McCaffrey there, and them potentially wasting his talent. And and they're going to end up starting from scratch, which means drafting another quarterback who they will hope turns out to be a Cam Newton or Joe Burrow. But that could be for a very, very long time. And it's just going to take a long time for them to start rebuilding a roster that, not too long ago went to the Super Bowl. And I believe under Cam Newton can get back there. Maybe not this upcoming year, but a couple years from now, could definitely get back there. But I think that they're going to end up wasting Christian McCaffrey's talent and in his superstardom while rebuilding the rest of the roster. And I think that in addition to that, they're probably going to let Cam Newton, probably cut Cam Newton, which will result in several players just leaving the organization. Okay, now I'm going to switch gears, switch leagues, from the NFL to the NBA, and now I'm going to talk about the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks are 10-34 as I'm recording this on Tuesday night, and they're sitting at the bottom of the Eastern Conference despite having a young, exciting group led by Trae Young. Part of the problem is that their defense is awful. It's, I think, the third worst in points per game given up in the whole league. And also part of the problem, granted, is that Trae Young was out for a couple games, but that doesn't really change their record being this atrocious. But I want to talk about not so much how bad they are or what they're doing wrong, but I want to talk about them being in trade rumors, especially trade rumors circulating Andre Drummond. I think it is a really, emphasis on really, really bad idea. Andre Drummond won't do much for that team and will kill their salary cap. It's pretty simple. But even generally, for any trade that they're thinking about doing, you have a young group and potentially a top 5 pick for the draft this year. Your leader is 21 years old and Trae Young. Give it time. All you can do for now is give these guys, your young players, the tools to improve their game, and along with veteran mentorship. That's all you can give them. And that's the best thing that you can do for them right now. Just let them grow on their own with their, with their trainer, and just give them a veteran presence, who right now is Vince Carter, to, walk them through it and get them through the league. Just let them develop naturally. Don't try to force it on them to be some megastar right off the bat, especially Trae Young. And I know it's really, really tempting to look at Luka Doncic and look what he's doing, and they're in the playoffs, and it's the Western Conference, and oh my god, he has a winning record too, and it's Kristaps Porzingis, who they traded for, and you're thinking like, oh, you know what, if we get Andre Drummond, we'll be right there in the Eastern Conference, which is a bit easier. But don't fall into that. Different things work for different people and teams. Give it time. If you just give it time, let it develop, so the Atlanta Hawks will be just fine. If you try to rush it, it's going to be nasty. The worst thing for the Hawks is to trade away significant young players, young pieces, for temporary success in what could be an Andre Drummond or some other player who is quite expensive. In trying to get to the playoffs, trying to get that playoff experience, which is good, but at the same time it's temporary success that you get into the playoffs and then you get bounced out. That's what the Pistons had for quite some time, even though they brought in Blake Griffin. They have success for the regular season. They get 42-40, get into the playoffs, and get swept. And eventually, after time, your fans are like, no. We see the writing on the walls. No. We don't like it. Dynasties aren't built through drafting one guy, hoping he's a superstar, and then the next year bringing in, via trade, some other guy. No. The Mavericks are trying to do that. That's not going to be a dynasty. That's not. I love Doncic. I love Kristaps. That's not going to be a dynasty until they let those guys develop and mature. But those are young guys, not Andre Drummond, who's been on the older end. No. Dynasties are built through the draft and developing them for long-term success. Look at the Warriors. Built through the draft, ended up after winning a championship, losing the next one, bringing in KD, won the next two. It's built through the draft with Klay Thompson, Stephen Curry, Draymond Green. Those three guys. It takes a lot of patience to build a really, really good team. The Spurs, prime example, built through the draft. Parker, Ginobili, Tim Duncan, Kawhi Leonard, built through the draft. So I think what the Hawks need to do is just take it slow. Breathe. Just take a breath. And don't do a trade, because that will only be temporary success rather than the long-term success that your organization can have if you just have patience. Now for the last topic of the day is the NBA All-Star voting. And this one's a bit, lighter. It's not some big deal, but I just wanted to talk about it a bit and, throw out a suggestion. Okay. All-Star voting is fun. Fans get to vote for their team's players, their favorite player, but they're supposed to do it somewhat seriously. There is no way that I don't care if it's this universe or an alternate one, there's no way that Alex Caruso or Taco Fall or this season Stephen Curry, who hasn't played much, should be voted at all in the voting process. And in doing that, you take away votes from other players. From Stephen Curry and Alex Caruso, you take away votes from Damian Lillard, Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook's actually below, I believe, Alex Caruso. If you find those votes, he could get to, one of the starters. Even Taco Fall, maybe Jason Tatum, makes a jump. But of course, the All-Star game isn't that serious, but some players care about where they are placed among the ranks of how much the fans like them, but not so much about that, but how much the fans recognize them. That's the key thing. Recognition. Players love recognition. And by taking away these votes from these really good players and giving them to players that are either inactive or bench pieces primarily, they come off the bench, play a couple minutes, you're showing a lack of recognition for other top players in the league. So here's what I propose, and again, this is very, very light. This is just a nice ending to the podcast. Maybe the media should choose the top 20 to 30 players in each conference, and then the fans vote from that selection. It's just so that nothing that shouldn't happen happens. I mean, we had I would say a scare, but it's like air quotes around it because it's, it's not that serious. I was at Petrolia a couple years back, almost making the All-Star game. So, I mean, things like that where it's like, really? I mean, come on. You're better than that. So, that's my proposition. It's not super serious, but it's just, it's supposed to be fun to vote for, great players and, mix and match and, share, with your friend, like, oh, I think this player should get in. And it's just fun. But by making it, like really silly is just not the way to go, and it deters from, really good players getting the recognition that they deserve. So, luckily stuff like this isn't that big of a deal, and, it's probably not going to get addressed, but it's not that big of a deal, and players don't even make it to the game, like Alex Caruso and Taco Fall, Stephen Curry are not going to be in the game. Zaza Pachulia did not make it into the game, but it's about, like I said, fans recognizing the best players in the game. Alright, that will be it for the TheGTruth. We had 6 topics today, which I'm very proud of. Should be interesting. I think I'm going to do... I kind of like this format. With a team or two to talk about, and then maybe I'm going to start moving on to some other coaching hires throughout the NFL. And we'll just see where it goes. We got Super Bowl weekend coming up in 2 weeks, which is going to be really, really good between the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers in Miami. That's going to be really, really fun. But in the meantime,